Tudum sisters, allies, and loved ones. Welcome to As Told by Childless Women, an oral history series that aims to usher our stories into the permanent archives of global history where they have always belonged. I'm your host, Joby Tyson, and the founder of Tudum Global, a media platform for childless women. And when I first envisioned this series, I knew I wanted to take an active role in documenting the narratives of involuntary childless women and the childless experience. As a researcher, I know too well that archives have the power to preserve community memory and influence individual identity. Today's episode gives a voice to failed hormone treatments, hysterectomies, and endometrial cancer. Behind every childless woman, there's a story. And today's guest, Tish Smith, hailing from Great England, is bravely sharing her story with us today. Hey, Tish, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Firstly, I would just like you to just introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
So I am Tish Smith. I am an American expatriate. So I moved to the UK in 2005 to marry my husband, who's English. And we've been happily married for 15 years now. And when we tried to have children, couldn't in the end because I ended up getting cancer instead, as I tell people. Yeah.
Okay, so I always like to start off these conversations from the beginning. So as the best as you can you walk us through the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, so we started to try to conceive in 2015, and after about 2 years of trying, we decided to go to the doctor and get checked out, where I was then very quickly diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which meant I could get referred for fertility treatments, which was brilliant. But during the diagnosis of that, one of the nurses said offhandedly, "Oh, you might have a polyp," during one of my scans I was having, and you might want to have that looked at before you go for fertility treatments, just an FYI. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we got the referral for the fertility treatments, which took about 4 months for an appointment. So during that time, I decided to try and go private to get this other thing looked at, just to make sure there wasn't anything wrong. So we were like, right, if we can get that out of the way, it's one less thing we have to worry about later. So I did that, and that was when we found out that I had cancer. So if I hadn't gotten it checked out, I never would have known. So what happened was I had a hysteroscopy, which they go in, have a look around your uterus, take some biopsy, and they then get that sent off for testing. It took 4 weeks for them to come back. He never said that anything looked wrong, because nothing did. Nothing looked wrong. And then 4 weeks later, the secretary rang us up, very insistent, 3 days before our appointment, to say, "Come in tomorrow. We need to see you tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, we're coming in this week." "No, tomorrow. We need to see you tomorrow." Like, first thing that pops into your head, I'm like, it's got to be bad. It's going to be something. So yeah, it turned out it was cancer, and he's walking through the stages. There's like hyperplasia, atypical hyperplasia, and then cancer. As he's getting closer, I'm like, not surprised he's going to say it. And then that was the diagnosis, was endometrial adenocarcinoma. It was very early, stage 1A, grade 1. He said it was borderline, so it's only like cellular level. There were no tumors. There was nothing else to indicate that I had anything going on. And that was the start of the end of my fertility treatments, because I couldn't then go for anything. So we talked to a fertility specialist, and she was like, "You can get your eggs harvested if you want. We can do all these different things. You just have to say the word." But I had to get rid of the cancer first before we could do anything proper, just to be safe. And my doctor was really good. We left the appointment with my doctor And my husband was like, well, you're going to have a hysterectomy. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, this is my body. We're trying to have a baby. Like, I don't want to stop that right now. I was like, I need to make a decision. So I started doing research and found like hormone treatments that were available that had really good results for some people, not necessarily going to work, but could work for me. So I was looking into that. I was building a case to kind of go back to the doctor and say, this is what I want to do. And I didn't have to do that in the end, because he rang us up 2 days later and said, I've sent your case off to a hospital where I know I'll get you more treatment options because you're trying to have a baby. And I think that is the really important thing. I didn't have to advocate very hard to get the treatment I wanted, because he was all for me doing what I wanted to do.
That's good.
Because it was such a low risk. If it had been worse, then I probably wouldn't have had that option.
Yeah.
So because I had time, he was okay for me to do that. And then so I started progesterone, taking progesterone. I took 60 milligrams a day for 3 months. It's considered a high dose. But it didn't really affect me very much.
So it's the oral medication?
Yeah. So 3 pills a day, 20 milligrams. And they basically, every 3 months, they review to see what the progress is. So every 3 months I had another hysteroscopy that year. Basically, I had 4 of them in the end, to say where I was. So they take a biopsy and see how it was. The first one I had after I started those treatments, there wasn't much change. So he's like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we can stop them now, get rid of the cancer, which he was all for getting rid of the cancer, of course. It's a smart thing to do. But he's like, well, we can double the dose and you can carry on for another 3 months and see if that gets us anywhere. So I decided to do that. And that's when the side effects kind of kicked in a bit more. I was on 120 milligrams of progesterone a day. It was like I was PMSing all the time.
So what were the side effects?
Weight gain. I was very moody. I was the worst version of myself I could possibly be. If I had any alcohol, which I didn't drink loads, but the first time I had a glass of wine, the next morning, I forgot to take my laptop to work because I just completely forgot I was out of it. So stuff like that, and like I was bloated all the time. I just didn't feel myself at all, and that lasted for another 3 months before my next hysteroscopy. And that one, I found out 2 weeks before my follow-up appointment, that it wasn't working because the secretary told me over the phone. She shouldn't have told me, but she did. And I was devastated, of course. But that gave me time to come to terms with it, because after 6 months, like, they then say, this has failed, like, it's not working. You either continue against our wishes or you have the hysterectomy, and then you're safe. So we took the week off. It was the week of my appointment. We took it off. It was 2017. It was the same week as the first World Childless Week, in fact. And I remember it because my Facebook feed, I just started joining all these groups, and it was filled with all these stories of women who are going through the same thing that I'm going through. And it was really emotional, but it helped me make the decision I needed to make. And it made it a little bit easier for me to go, right, well, I know I'm not the only one going through this. And those stories kind of gave me the strength to make that decision, because everyone was relieved, obviously, knowing that I had this horrible thing going on inside of me. They're like, everyone wanted me to just make the decision to get rid of it, and I couldn't do that yet. I couldn't until I knew I'd done as much as I could. And so I was at that point, and I was like, right, okay. So we went in, and he went through it. He's like, we can try another doubling your dose. We can try all this stuff. He said, but really, he's like, at your age, you've got polycystic ovaries. He's like, you're going to have a harder time getting pregnant now. I really want you to just have the hysterectomy and make sure you're cancer free and healthy. And I was like, yes, okay, we'll do it. And so that's where we were. So I had 6 months of hopefulness before I kind of had to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't going to happen, and that I needed to get rid of this cancer before it got anything more serious.
And you mentioned your age. How old were you at that time?
So I was 37 when I was diagnosed.
Okay. And so everyone knows endometrial cancer is a type of cancer that begins in the lining of the uterus or the womb. So when you say you got your hysterectomy, what type of hysterectomy did you get, and what reproductive organs did you get removed?
So I got a total hysterectomy. I had it done laparoscopically. So I have hardly any scarring because they didn't cut open my abdomen. And I had my uterus and my cervix removed completely. So I've kept my ovaries because he said they were completely healthy and there was no reason to remove them and put me into early menopause because they were still going. They were still taking along, so that was fine. And then you get what's called a vaginal cuff at the top of your vagina where they sew it up, so because you don't have anything else there now. And then that was all it was.
Okay, so as a researcher, it would be remiss if I didn't mention some statistics to the audience. So endometrial cancer affects mainly post-menopausal women. The average age that's diagnosed is 60, and it's uncommon in women under 40. So for Tish's story and journey with this, it was extremely uncommon for her at 37 to be diagnosed with endometrial cancer. So what was the psychological impact that all of this had on you?
Oh gosh, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. It was 3 years ago it happened, but like the whole time I was going through all of that, it was over the course of a year. And my main focus was just staying positive and just making sure I was okay with the decisions I was making. And I think it got to a point that last year I kind of hit a wall with that staying positive thing, and I just kind of broke down completely because I tried it. I was positive for too long, and then I realized that like I have to face this properly. Like this isn't going away. My life is now completely altered because I'm always going to be an cancer patient. No matter what happens in the future, I have to say, yes, I've had cancer. It affects every part of your life, even if you don't think it does. And then the childlessness on top of that was another thing I had to face and deal with. So I still kind of go through the ramifications of everything.
Yeah. And with the social stigma attached to childlessness, what has been your experience existing in the world as a childless woman thus far?
I make sure to let people know that if they ask me, do I have children? I tell them that they shouldn't ask that. And I tell them why they shouldn't ask that, because it's none of their business. It's rude. So like the last time I was asked, do I have children? I literally said to them, I was like, no, I got cancer instead. And it stops them in their tracks because they don't expect that answer. Like and then they kind of go, oh, I'm really sorry about that. And it's like, if you think you're going to get an answer that makes you uncomfortable, you shouldn't ask the question. And it's just something that I've tried to bring attention to everyone. We had a lot of, when we were first married, people asking us, oh, when are you going to have kids? Like, when are you going to get pregnant? And I just stopped it straight. I was like, no, don't ask. It's not a big deal. Like, just don't worry about it. It's not your business. So I've been really careful to not allow it to become a thing for me to be stigmatized by not having children. Like, if I'm still a person, everyone that has it doesn't have a child, they're still a whole person. They have a whole life. Like, don't ask them these things.
So how have you found yourself to cope with childlessness and cancer diagnosis?
I write a lot. I wrote throughout the whole thing, and it just helped me kind of work through my emotions, work through my issues, and heal a little bit. I take a day if I need to. I still grieve. Occasionally it pops up. It still feels as bad as it did 3 years ago. And so I make sure I take the time to take care of myself when I need to take care of myself, because I find like 85% of the time I'm okay. I'm fine, I'm happy. But it's that other 15% like where I know where I'm not going to be able to deal with things. I just take the time to just shut everything down and just do what I need to do to take care of myself.
So for those listening, did you have any clues or symptoms prior to being diagnosed with endometrial cancer? Then you found out later that that's what my body was telling me?
Well, so polycystic ovarian syndrome is one of the symptoms that can lead to it. So it's like heavy periods, heavy bleeding during your periods, which I had for years. And none of my doctors ever said to me that was a risk or anything. And those were the two main ones for me. I didn't have anything else, but those two were the ones that are the biggest. And I find I was very lax about getting a diagnosis earlier on for my polycystic ovarian syndrome, because I spoke to a previous doctor about it and she just dismissed it. And I didn't push back. I didn't fight for myself to get that looked at sooner. And you wonder, could it have made a difference? I don't think about it too much now because it doesn't matter anymore right now. But you do wonder, like, if I had fought for myself earlier, would it have been that much of a difference that I wouldn't have caught cancer because they could have stopped it? But I'm a big advocate now for just speaking up with your doctors, advocating for yourself, making sure your voice is heard and you get the treatment that you want and that you need.
Absolutely. And so many of us question, but we do know that that's our life's fate, and to just find a way to live beyond childlessness. So knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Make sure your doctors listen to what you're saying about your body. That's the biggest thing you can do for yourself. If you think something is wrong, fight for it.
Yeah. I firmly believe that with or without children, that we all have meaning and purpose. So I like to ask you, what brings you happiness?
Cooking, baking, spending time with my friends and family, which is very difficult this year. But just making connections with people, and it's a big reason why I share my experiences through social media and online, because if I think that I'm helping anyone, then that helps me, and that makes me happy, because that is a pretty positive impact to have in the world, I think.
So have you figured out your life's purpose?
Not really, but I would like to think that being able to share everything that I go through, like this and anything else, mental health and stuff like that, that it will help make a positive impact in anyone else's life. So people don't know that they're alone. They don't feel like they're trapped, that they know that there are other people out there who've got the same things going on and they understand what they're going through. I think that is something that I'm driven to share with the world, and that's part of why I'm here. So I'd like to say that's my purpose, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to work that through my whole life yet.
Yes. And speaking of purpose and sharing your story with people, tell us a little about your blog, Ocean Chica.
So I started my blog years and years and years ago. It used to just be a place for me to kind of rant about whatever I was upset about, just kind of what my day was like. But I've had it longer than I've lived in the UK. So like I kind of documented my whole traveling to the UK, moving over here. And then I've become I write a lot about my depression and anxiety that I have to deal with, and I was suicidal when I was younger, so I make sure to advocate for suicide awareness and stuff like that. And then when I had cancer, I wrote about that constantly because it's a great place for my friends and family to be updated all in one place, but also if other people needed to see that and they could find it, then it would help them. And so it's now a place where I am able to share my experiences and make sure that other people understand that there is someone else out there that feels the way they do. And it's perfectly normal to feel that way.
So how were you able to manage your depression while you were going through your cancer?
It kind of wasn't managed well. It kind of took a backseat because I was dealing with cancer. And with the hormones, the double dose that I was on, it was very difficult. I had really, really bad days. But I've kind of come out of that now. And so, because I don't take medication for it at the moment, I try to manage it through exercise and getting outside, taking the time I need to just kind of self-care when I need to, which this year has been plentiful because I haven't been working for a while. And I actually feel mentally the healthiest I've felt in a long time because of that, which is a positive thing, I guess, that's coming up this year.
That's so good that you found a way to find happiness and meaning beyond childlessness. And I thank you so much, Tish, for sharing your story with us. Do you have any last words? Anything I missed?
No. We've covered all of my stuff. Just know that no one is alone in this. There's a whole community of women who know exactly how it feels to not have that thing that you want the most.
Awesome. And share your website with the audience.
My blog is oceanchica.com, and my blog is basically my life.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. And I know that it will help so many that have experienced what you have or are currently experiencing what you have or want to be educated. And I thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, Tish.
Bye.
Childless woman, you're beautiful. Child-free woman, you are enough. This journey might not be easy, but we're in this together so we can get through this together by owning our voice. Thank you for your time and attention today. Please like, subscribe, share, and download this episode. From Totem Global, I'm your host, Joby Tyson. See you next time on As Told by Childless Women. To support this series, please visit astoldbychildlesswomen.com.